Hello class, we're going to continue on with our student application. Added to the UML diagram, here's our student object that we've created. We're going to create a couple of objects that extend the student. Our graduate object is going to have 2 additional class fields. Our career center object will have 3 additional class fields. Notice on the UML diagram how both of these objects point towards the student. That shows that they inherit from the student, that the student is like their parent. So I'm going to open Visual Studio and I'm going to create my graduate class first. I had just connected to TFS, so I know everything's good there. I'm going to choose Class Library Universal Windows. I'm going to find my right project location, and I'm going to name this graduate class. All right. I'll say that it is fine to use any Windows 10 version. And I'm just going to close out that settings. It's going to go in my CIS151 assignments folder on TFS. And again, because it is a class library, my default project settings created a class file named class 1. I'll rename that to graduate. Now, our graduate is going to inherit from our student. And we've seen that it's a very simple process. All we have to do is specify a colon and then the name of the class that we want to inherit from. Our class name is student. Immediately we get an error saying that this can't be found. And of course it can't. We're in this brand new project called a graduate class that knows nothing about our student project. So we need to connect them. We need to add a reference in this project to that student application. I'm going to clean up these using clauses first, and then we'll add that reference. Our references are shown in the Solution Explorer under our project. If I expand our references right now, you see we have some references because of our Universal Windows application, but I'd like to add a reference. Now there's several ways that we can get to this tool, of course, but I can right-click in Solution Explorer and choose Add Reference. That takes me to this reference manager. I have this leftover stuff, so I will clear that. Now when we look at the reference manager for our project, you can see there's lots of different categories of references. Under assemblies, we have framework references and extensions. This is where we'll see the majority of things that by default we could add to our project. Microsoft extensions and things like that that are helpful to us. We also have projects and shared projects, Universal Windows extensions, and we could browse for recent extensions. But we want to add a new one, so let's just click Browse. Now mine, as you can tell, I had already been testing, so it knows about my DLL library. You'll probably have to navigate to that folder. So again, mine was in my Documents folder. I created this DLL library where we copied our DLL. So I find my student class.dll, looks right, time's right, so I'm going to add it to my project. Now we see it, that it's here, we can use it. We have a reference to it, so I'm going to click OK. Now that we have a reference to our student class project, we should be able to view it in the Object Browser tool. So I'm going to click on this student class reference and right-click and choose to view in the Object Browser. In the Object Browser, it's got it rolled up, so I'm going to expand it. I see my student object, When I click on that, I see the exposed methods and properties from my student class. So this object browser will show you that information for a DLL file that you reference in your project. Okay, so now in my graduate class, I should be able to reference my student, but it says it's still not found. So I do need to add a reference here using student class, and then everything is all happy. So my using statement is going to be my solution name from that project that we generated the DLL from, and then my reference name in my class statement. The parent class is going to be the name of the class file. So we have that reference set up. We're all good. So for our graduate student, we need some class fields here. And so first we're going to have a string that is going to be our degree type and then our alma mater. Let's make that private. I want to generate some awesome properties for those, but I still want to use those fields. So I'll generate my getters and setters. Okay, so we have a good start here to our graduate class. I need some constructors. So the first constructor, of course, will just generate our default no R constructor. Now the name of our class is graduate. Our constructor always has to have the same exact name as our class. For this one, we're going to have no parameters. So it'll be our default no arg constructor. Now the next constructor, we would like to be one that uses all the parameters. So we're going to need to specify the strings that we need for this object, our graduate object. We need our degree type and our alma mater. Now there's more though, because when we create a reference, we can say, well, there are additional parameters that need to be passed to the base. And the base needs some things. Now let's see what else we're mad about. Oh, just that it doesn't have a body. Okay, so in our base class, our employee class, we remember that we have that last name. Oh, look at it popping up our stuff about our employee, our student, I'm sorry. Now we should be able to see all of our different constructors here, but notice that we're not seeing our XML comments. We'll have to fix that. So I could have the first name and then we have a constructor that uses all four. Now, why is it mad at us? It says, I don't know what these are that you're passing. And it doesn't like that either, does it? That's weird. It's like we're missing a piece. Well, we are. We can't specify just our derived classes parameters here in this. We have to specify both. And we've got to specify our parent class first. I'm going to press enter there. So, in our first parameter list, after the name of our class, we specify every single possible parameter because we want them all for this particular constructor. So in this constructor, we want last name, first name, their current major, their ID, their degree type, and their alma mater. So we're pulling a lot of information. After that, we can specify of all of those, these 4 belong to the base or the parent class for this constructor. So we need to be concerned about our degree type and our alma mater. When we create this instance of this graduate object, Visual Studio in the C# runtime will automatically create an instance of the parent student object. So it will use the constructor in the student object to set up all those student objects data fields. So it will all work out just great. Everything will be fine in the end. Now for our graduate though, we could have a lot of different constructors because of this, right? So let's say we have another one that just gives us leave out that current major because we don't know what it is, and their degree type and their alma mater. Now for this one, again, we need to make sure that we're specifying the correct parameters to go to our parent class. Now, in this example, notice that we did 3 out of the 4 parameters that were passed to our parent or the base class. We again did both parameters for our graduate. We could set this up to have many, many different combinations, all the different possible combinations. We only want to set up the constructors that are necessary for our application. So we're going to stop right there. We might, have to come back and revise if we find out that we require additional constructors. But I'm going to put comments on these. Our default no-R constructor. Our full constructor that requires all parameters for both classes. And then our constructor with all but current major. Sometimes people just can't decide. Now we've got our class pretty well finished. We need to override the toString. Now, because this is not a static class or static method, it'll be an instance method. We'll have an instance of it for every instance we have of our class. Now, what we want to return here is our base toString. That's our parent, right? So that's going to return the information about the student from our student class. So let's add to that. I'm going to add degree type and the alma mater. So I'm not going to get too fancy there. Just a space, degree type, and a space, and the alma mater. Finish it up, and our class should be all set. Now, when I build this class, our graduate class, notice that it's going to contain an instance of our student class. So if our student class had to be updated, we would have to revise this graduate class also and rebuild it for it to reflect those updates. Now, of course, we could put a lot more information, but that will be enough to suffice. I'm going to do a save all, and then I'm going to build this project or solution. Awesome. Now I can again go to, I'm looking down here and I see that it succeeded. Everything is fine. So I'm going to use Solution Explorer to go to my folder view, expand that folder, find my DLL, and notice that my debug folder now contains a copy of the student class DLL also. And I'm going to paste this in my DLL library. Now we have them both saved. Should be the same exact versions everywhere. That can be a problem for us. We have to be really, really careful with that. I'll close Visual Studio because I'm done with my graduate. Look at me, how bad I am, right? Let me open that again because I did not check it in to TFS. And I'll do that. My graduate class initial check-in, check it in. And then I'll just close this solution and create a new one. I want a new project because our Career Center class is going to be in a separate class library. We have different development staff that takes care of these things, and you know, sometimes we don't want to cross boundaries. We just want to keep everything as modular as possible. So we're going to create our Career Center class. I'm going to put it in the folder that I want it to be in. Make sure it's set as a class library, Universal Windows, and click OK to create it. I want it to run on any Windows 10 version. Close out of this. Somebody will tell me what I need to do there. Okay, it's going to go into my assignments folder. I will use Solution Explorer to rename the class. Career Center. Now again, our Career Center is going to inherit from our student class. We don't have that available to us yet, so let's take care of that. I'm going to look at my references and expand them and add a reference to my way. I would like, this one is actually showing because it was recent, so I can just check it. Now, if it's not showing, simply browse and go to your DLL library and choose it. That should be enough to make it show up over here in our references. Now I can add the using clause for it, and my error should go away. Now in our private class fields, for our Career Center students, we want to know what year they're going to graduate, their guardian name and guardian address. And we decided to use a string for this graduation year, just to ensure flexibility. And then I just love to generate those getters and setters. And I'll put in my end region. Now we have our class pretty well set. We have our getters and setters. I'm trying to make this as big as I can. Everything all set up. Looks great, and all good. Now, for our Career Center students, then again, we need some constructors. So we'll have our default, our constructor. Then let's have a constructor that has everything. And again, we saw that we need to have all of the parameters for the parent class. Then all of the parameters for this child class. Graduation year. And I'm just making these names short to remind you that they don't have to be the same. They could be though. Now we're going to start out with our graduation year. Our guardian name. And our guardian address. And of course, this constructor will call our student constructor to create that student instance with the other available parameters. Now again, we could create many different constructors, different combinations, but no matter what we create constructor-wise, someone could use the default constructor and then use our properties to update the different values so we could get everything set properly. Be the end of our constructors region. Put some comments here. And finally, our toString. Not private, huh? Now again, this return base.toString is going to run the toString method in our student class, which is great. Let's just add a little bit more to that. We would like to also see some information about this guardianship. So we'll add a space and their graduation year plus another space and their guardian name. And I want that private class field and their guardian address. And of course, if I use the properties there, then I would be using the getter. So if I had some sort of like code in there that did something, I might want to do that. But in general, the private class field is going to be the most accessible, fastest. Okay, it returns our string representation. Now our class should be done here, looking at our Career Center type of student. Again, I'm going to save all. And I want to build check and I have no errors. I'll go to Solution Explorer and change to folder view. Expand my project, bin, debug. I see my Career Center class DLL file, so I'm going to copy that and paste it in my DLL library. Now I have all three of my DLL files in my DLL library. I'm ready to create the development of the forms-based application that will use all of these DLLs to generate the application. So we'll do that in the next video. Thank you.